All right, this video is about using the putting in these open web trusses. I've given you this one in the downloads. It's from the Red Built company, which builds open web trusses. It was a good model. I used it in the previous class. It worked fine. I used it on my desktop computer at school today, and it worked fine. But in my laptop, it is not wanting to work fine anymore. So I don't know what you're going to run into with this one. I would I would prefer you to use this family, this truss in your project if you can get it to work correctly. If not, then there's an alternative. So try this one first. Now I'll show you the way that I did it at school today, and it worked great. But on my laptop here, it is not working the way it's supposed to. So what I did, I put a reference plane in up here. I drew it in section view, and I dimensioned it a half an inch off of the inside of my masonry wall and locked that in place. And I did the same thing down here on the south wall. I put another one in and I moved it a half of an inch in and dimensioned it. Now, as you're working through this project, I'm going to tell you in this video, I don't know which video you're going to watch first, but I'm going to tell you if you create reference planes, name your reference planes. Because as you remember in our project in 1131, when we did the roof, we created all these reference planes. There were a lot of them, and then when they show up in another view, you don't really know what they are. So you need to name your reference planes. Okay, so I created one half of an inch in. I created a second one down here on the south, and I aligned it to the exterior side of my metal stud wall, and I pinned it there, or I locked it in place in the alignment. All right, so when you load this thing, let me show you the parameters over here on it. Don't pay any attention to the cutback yet, okay? You're going to use a Z offset value for this one of 1 9/16 because when you look at it here in section, if you measure from the top of the cord down to the bottom of the plate, you end up with 1 9/16. And we want the bottom of this plate right here sitting on top of the ledger. Okay, so that's where I came up with the Z offset value. So that's easier to use than the start and end level offset because this will slope your truss. If you're doing a sloped roof, then that's what you would do, but we're doing a flat roof, so we're going to use Z offset. This right here, bottom bearing left, and then bottom bearing would be the right side. For these trusses, we uncheck both of those boxes, and that makes it look like this configuration here. Now, the bottom bearing, I'll show you in a moment where we're going to go over the stud wall. I'll show you how that looks. So on that one, you would check the bottom bearing right if you draw it from the center down, and it'll change the configuration of the truss. Here's what I cannot get to work. I cannot get these start and end extension values to work. It doesn't change the size of my truss. And no matter how I draw it, it always snaps to the center of my ledger here or to the center of the masonry wall, which is the way that beams are supposed to work, but you're supposed to be able to use these extensions, and they're not working. I don't know why, but it's on my laptop. It's not. At school, it worked great. Anyway, so when you're placing these things, be sure and place them as a structural usage as a joist. Okay. Your depth will be 2'6". It's a 30-inch deep truss. And that's pretty much all the parameters. Okay. So when you'll need to load it, and then I'll draw one in down here and show you what I'm talking about. So you'll load it, you go beam, you can load it from here, make your settings here, make sure that's right, okay? And then you come in and I start drawing them from the upper part of my screen down. I just find it easier, okay? Now here's what I'm talking about. I would snap it to my reference line, and you see it sticks it into the, oh, that was the wrong truss, sorry. Let's delete that one and start over. That was the other one I was going to show you. I want the red built W, which is the one that we're using in this project. It's one family, but you choose, do you want the L or the W? So we want the W. All right, so I'm going to start center of that beam and come down, and I snap to my reference line, and it sticks it into the wall. Okay, you see the little blue dot right there. I don't want it sticking into the masonry wall. I want it back up here. And you see it still didn't move. It's still going into the wall. So I'll bring it out to the face of the ledger, and then it pops it to the center of the ledger. And like I said, I've tried the extensions. It didn't work. I tried the cutbacks. They're not changing the size and shape of the model. Okay, so that's how you would put it in. And then you'll dimension it from the inside of my inside of the masonry wall to the center of the first truss will be 2 feet. And then they're 2 feet on center going down. So you can use an array pattern to move those on down after you get the first one length and everything set correctly. Now the ones going over the wall here, what I wanted was them to the end of it to be out here with the exterior side of the metal stud. I can't get it to do that. So let me show you why I wanted to use this one. Now keep in mind I've got 2 of them in. I didn't set the depth on that one. So I'm going to go ahead and take that one out. Here is what the right end looks like when you set it to bottom bearing. So I've got it checked right here, bottom bearing on the right side, and it extends the bottom cord out and puts this vertical pole in, which would be necessary for a bottom bearing truss. But that pole needs to be over the top of the beam that we're putting it on top of here. Okay, so that's how the red W one works. Try it. If you can get the extensions to work or the cutbacks to work, then great. I would much rather use this truss. Okay. If not, this truss right here is available in my version of Revit that I've got here on my laptop. This version is available. A student last semester did not have this version in his catalog, in the catalog that he had downloaded. So we had to come up with an alternative, which was the red build. Okay, so what this one looks like, it's in the catalog. Oh, I need to be there for it. Okay, so I'll show you where it's at. It's in structural framing, wood, and the joist here. I can't remember which one I pulled in. Oh, yeah, it was the TJL.